What's up everybody? Welcome back to RoyalBluFX. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to play dumb while trading. All in this video, so stay tuned. If you haven't already, go ahead and please subscribe to this channel because we always give out free content. And as you guys already know, we already have released our online course. It's right here. You guys can see it right over here on this page right now. And go ahead right now and purchase it. It's $1,300. Go ahead and DM us right now on Instagram at RoyalBluFX and to find out about the payment options so we can get you guys started. So without any further ado, let's begin with this video. All right, in trading, sometimes you have to play dumb. All right, sometimes you have to tell yourself, I don't know what's happening in the market. I don't see anything in the market that literally translates to me as a buy or a sell, right? And a lot of times in the markets, we always have the excuse to try to make an excuse for ourselves to actually try to buy and or sell, to trade, right? To get an excuse to go in the market, right? And that's really the wrong way of trading, as we all know it, right? As humans, we always have the tendency to try to be correct. That's just our human nature, right? So anytime we are looking in the markets, we always look for an excuse to try to get in, try to figure out so hard to figure out what the market is trying to tell us. I mean, it burns our energy out quickly and fast. When we start to overcomplicate things, right? Let's just say that. When we start to overcomplicate things, our mind starts to fog up, right? We start becoming depressed, annoyed, angry, right? And these are all the emotions that generate in trading, right? What you don't need, obviously, right? So this is a big portion of sort of how what I'm going to be talking about. It's going to be a big portion of why to see the difference between what you see in the market versus what you shouldn't see in the market, right? And it's very typical as a trader to not be able to read everything. You're not supposed to read everything and see everything in the market. You're only supposed to see what your eyes were literally taught to see, which is your trading strategy, right? So in this video, we're going to talk about what I see versus what I don't see, right? Pretty much the trading strategy that I am set to look for, right? So I don't overburn myself versus what I don't see. All right, so in trading, sometimes you have to play dumb, okay? It doesn't literally mean literally dumb. I mean in the psychological point, okay? So let me just kind of explain why and show you guys, okay? As we all know in the markets, we always like to feel correct and be correct. We always like to be the one that is, on the right side, right? Or right side minded, right? So whenever, I'll even tell you a quick little example, okay? So when, let's say, there's both a Republican and Democrat, both a Republican and Democrat, right? Both of them can be correct, but both of them can be incorrect as well, right? So there are some times where both the Democrat and Republican can be correct in certain, situations, okay? So I don't know if that makes a whole entire sense to you guys, but, right? So not just because you see something in the market doesn't mean you always have to trade it, okay? It doesn't mean that your mind has to say, I have to trade now. I have to literally buy or sell right now, right? It literally just means that you don't know what you are seeing, right, as correct, okay? So in this case, let's just look at this data over here, okay? In my eyes, since I know I trade liquidity, I can see already what is correct for me, what is true, right? And therefore I don't have to play dumb. I can already see it, right? So I see there's liquidity there, price sweeps, right, all this liquidity, and then trades away, right? I can also see other examples right here. Price sweeps liquidity, trades away, right? So this to me, right, I don't have to play dumb. I already know what's happening, right? But if we're looking here now, this is in this next scenario, right, I don't know what the heck is happening. Okay, and the reason why I don't know, right, and I have to be truthful and honest to myself, right? A lot of us don't want to be truthful and honest, but in this case, I can already tell you right here, I don't know what's happening. I see that price hit the supply zone, price also hit this demand zone, right? We are left in most likely a consolidation period. I don't know, right? But does that mean I should start jumping in and selling and or buying right now? No. I can't do that because I don't know what's happening, right? I shouldn't press myself and obligate myself to look to enter, right? My rules is, right, the rules here is if I don't see anything, right, then stay away from it, right? Just take your time out, right? I have to admit myself, and I tell this to myself a lot of the times when I trade. I don't know, honestly, I don't see what I know, then just, just forget about it. Let's just get out and go and do some push-ups. I don't know, go and watch something, right? Go eat something, whatever, right? But in this case, I don't see anything. So I would take myself away from the screen, right? Let's look over here, this data over here. Can I see anything in this case, right? There's a low, there's a high. I don't see anything in here that translates to me that I'm buying or selling, right? Because we have a high there and a low here. There is a supply zone here, right? People are selling, but I'm not selling that because I'm not a supply and demand trader. Therefore, I don't need to trade, right? So therefore, there's nothing for me to sell or buy in here. So I'm done, right? Let's look over here in this data, right? So I'm just trying to show you guys to sort of amp up your, confidence on just confessing to yourself that you don't know, right, certain areas to trade, and that's okay. That's part of trading, right? Because the market does what it does in so many complicated ways. It moves, and we can't really figure out what's happening, right? And a lot of times, a lot of traders actually have asked me and have always have asked me and said, well, how do you identify the trend? How do you know where the trend is, right? There's many ways to identify the trend. However, in this case, right, my trend is when price sweeps the liquidity, and that's when I identify the trend, right? The trend is after price takes over liquidity, the trend will be bearish for me, right? So in my eyes, I'm being honest and truthful to myself. I'm not trying to lie to myself and say, no, I think this is the trend, right? I know. What I always tell my traders is trade what you see, not what you think, right? So if I see it very clear like this swept all the liquidity, my trend is bearish. Therefore, I'm going to go in here from the 15-minute to the 1 minute to start looking for liquidity sweeps like here, right? Trade away, right? Liquidity sweep right there, trade away, right? Liquidity sweep, let's see, is there more liquidity sweep here on the London session? Maybe. Anyway, the idea here is, yes, I think it was actually. No, it's not. Okay. But the idea is liquidity sweep, trade away, right? So if I know this is a sweep here and price is going bearish, right, I'm going to follow all the other internal sweeps of structures, right, to give me that extra push of momentum to continue bearish, right? So not only the major structure swept the liquidity, but we're also going to look at the internal structure for liquidity sweeps, so I can take that extra push, so I can be into profit right away, okay? Now this is I keep the strategy very simple and clear in my head, right? So I don't fog up my brain and start giving myself excuses to start looking to buy and or sell. Let's look at this example down here. Okay, when we're in down here, right, let's look at this right over here and all this. When price was creating here, right there, and then with the New York session, okay, when New York session opened, right, right over here, right, price isn't really going anywhere. It's just consolidating in here, right? So does that mean I should be trading, right? There's a lot of times when people, again, just make themselves the excuses. I can trade now. I should buy off a demand zone. I should, right? There's a supply zone here. I should trade now, right? I should trade all the way down here, right? It doesn't make any sense when you should get in and trade whenever you want. It should be when things are simple and clear. Right? Let's go on the higher time frame. Let's go even further out, right? When I see something like this, when I see a low and a high and another low, right, I can clearly see that's a supply zone. Yes, however, there's a bunch of liquidity sitting there. Then I'm okay to go in and start looking for the trade, right? That's how clean and clear it should be. Another clean and clear way to look at the market, right, really is just put your line chart and then trigger on, put on your line chart like this, right? And then just look at the highs and lows, highs, lows, highs, just like this, right? Once you see this, right, then it becomes a lot more clearer to then trade what you see, but not what you think, okay? So a lot of times, again, we have a tendency to think about why we should trade, why we should get in all the time. We're making excuses, right? Here's a demand zone, for example, right? In this criteria, in fact, let me show you an example right here. I see it clear and clear. Clean and clear. Right here, when you see the London session pressed bearish, right, went all the way bearish here, does that tell me I should get in right? No, it doesn't, because my criteria hasn't been met. Therefore, I might most likely have to skip the London session. I can't trade the London session, right? We can see above here. Let's look over here actually. Did this sweep the high? Yes, that swept the high. So there's all this liquidity right there, right? So it swept that high with a bunch of liquidity. So this is the impulse. This is the impulse that's pushing price bearish. That means all the momentum is driving bearish. That means, in my case, what I expect all the time for London and or New York is to take out some form of liquidity like this, right? So if London opened here, right over here, I would expect that London would come back quickly, right? Take out this liquidity and then run back bearish, right? Because that helps me to understand that, before the market doesn't need to move, it can't move, it shouldn't move if the market hasn't swept any kind of form of liquidity, right? But in this case, we know that there could have been, before the London session, there could have been liquidity sweep already, right? That's why it's continuing this London push. Right here, for example, in Asia, we did sweep, actually, it's all this liquidity right here. Asia did sweep this liquidity, right? So this swing high right here is indicating us that this is where the origin of London started. Well, really, the origin started up here, right? At this high right here. That was the high that swept all this liquidity. But then we have an internal swing high, which is right here, right? It's also helping London to continue bearish. So it may or may not, London may or may not come back above that high, right? Or maybe create more liquidity, say, for example, like this, right? To sweep all this liquidity to then come bearish, right? And that, right, that simply on its own will tell me whether I should be buying or selling. So in this case, since price went up like this and went bearish, I can't sell London at all. Even though I know London is bearish, even though I see that the market's going to be bearish today for London, I'm just expecting that price can come out and take some form of liquidity first before London drops, okay? So that's one example, pretty much, of when price opens, right? And I'm looking to check off my list, right? I'm not telling myself, right? In this case right here, I have to play dumb, right? When the market drops, I have to play dumb. I have to think to myself, oh, okay, well, I don't know where the market's going right now, honestly, right? If this candle created, I really don't know what the market's doing. Let's even just cut that off for a second. Let me just give you a realization so you can see what it's doing here, okay? So London just opened, and it opens 12 o'clock midnight for me, which is right there, 000, right? Price is pushing, right? Let's look at the next candle. No, nothing. I don't know what's happening. I don't know anything right now. I don't know what's happening. I can't make up anything right now. I can't tell myself I should sell. The market wants you to continue selling, right? It's enticing you to sell. So, rightfully so, I don't know what's happening, right? It's all bearish. It's not sweeping anything, right? Nothing. So if nothing happened, right, we would wait for, look, for example, like right here, we can see a bunch of liquidity is creating right there, right? Right here, a bunch of liquidity. So in this case, if London did come up here fast, maybe if there was some sort of news perhaps, the news pushed the market up here, I could then start looking for price to run bearish, just like this. If news took it up, I can take the market bearish because I know in this case, we have to take out this low right here, right, to clear out all this liquidity, right? So let's see, we are nearing 5:45, so 6:30 a.m. is when when New York session opens, right? Let's see, can I see New York? Because I would look for New York to sweep, right? Let's see, this is a 6:15. Okay, 6:15 swept those liquidity. So what do you think in my eyes? What would I think this would be right now, right? Because I know the origin of this high swept, right? We're still looking to take price bearish, right? And we haven't swept this low yet, which means we've built all this sell side liquidity right here, right? So that means I would like for price to sweep this low, right? But we're still continuing price bearish. So in this case, I'm not making myself an excuse and telling myself, oh, well, hey, now I'm gonna, start trading because I don't see anything. No, I clearly see something right here. This is a bunch of liquidity, right? This is where I'm telling myself I'm on the go here. I can go, right? So let's see what happens. If New York opens up, there's 6:30 right there, right? So we can start looking for confirmations internally in here. We can start looking for confirmations. Let's see. Okay, and it looks like, there we go. Liquidity was swept and it ran down. So I can see just a bit right there. There was liquidity, swept right there. I would have been able to sell there. Again, I didn't rush into anything. I was able to clearly see the whole picture. I wasn't making any of the stuff up. I'm trying to see, what do I see? And if I can see it clear, good, right? So I would have canceled. I would have not looked at London. I mean, I might come back every 15 minutes or so, because I would have to stay on the 15-minute, right, to sweep a high, to continue bearish, right, or something. But in this case, I waited for New York now. Now I highlighted this, right? I put an alert. Let's just say you put an alert. New York came here, swept it, and then we looked for more confirmation to take price bearish. That's how you do it, guys, right? You don't need to overcomplicate the process. Let's look at, let me just delete some stuff here, and let's just play around here, just something like this, okay? Let's look at this. So in this format, right, do we see anything, right? If I don't see anything, I can't make it up. I see right here we swept a bunch of liquidity, price ran up, right? But this low respected the supply zone, right? So which there is liquidity above this right there. So there is liquidity above this high right here, right? A lot of times when you're trading, when you're doing a lot of setups, right, you can start mapping out everything you see, right, just so it can make clear sense to you. But that doesn't mean you should trade either. Let's look over here quickly. We do have a low, high and a low, right? So everyone's playing supply and demand here. I don't see anything for myself here. I would need at least this low to be swept if I should be buying anything, because we did sweep this low here. We do have a bunch of liquidity sitting here and here as well. So pretty much there's nothing to trade. For me, there's nothing to trade here. Let's wait for New York, right? Let's wait for New York. Let's fast forward this. I do see something there, actually. I already did see that, actually. There was a bunch of liquidity sitting there. I would have sold that, honestly, right? Right there. And this would be on the 1 minute, guys, not on this time frame. Okay, so I would sell that. And I do see demand right here. So right there would be nice. A bunch of liquidity right here being received, right? We swept that, right? What is this, 5 o'clock? Okay, 5 o'clock. So we're going to wait for 6:30, right? But do you guys see what I did here? I didn't rush into anything. I'm just trying to see what I see. And I'm not trying to be like all knowing, like, oh yeah, this is a demand zone. I'm going to literally buy here when it gets there, right? Or forcing myself to get into anything. Trade what you see, not what you think. Okay, right here we swept the internal. This is 6:30, it ran, yeah, so there we go. Okay, so in the lower time frame, since I saw this swept, New York would have been a buy here, right? And then we could target the opposing liquidity, right? Right there, just like that. So we could target this to start with and this to end with right here. So you got two TPs right here. That means we have the liquidity swept, New York opened here, and we traded away. You see, so this is how you can set yourself up, right? And then from here, right, we swept a bunch of liquidity here. You can start looking to sell, right? Something like that. Boom. Right? Well, given that you have more confirmation, right? And I can see once we swept all this liquidity inside, I could see that there is a bunch of liquidity. I would have waited for that to happen, put my risk above the high, target this demand zone at minimum. Let's do it right here, right? And we are sweeping all this liquidity too, so mind you, right, maybe I can take some partials here, right? And let's see if we can target. Nope, it would have probably taken me out. Yeah, that's what I said. Oh, actually, no, I do see my demand zone right here. I saw it right here, right there. So that would have been a healthy TP right there. Because I said target the nearest demand, right? That would have been it, not down here. This is internal. That would have been the healthy TP right there, right? So do you guys see what I'm saying again, right? I'm not trading what I don't see. Don't overcomplicate your brain. Don't overfog your brain. Literally trade what you see, right? Let me show you some examples again, maybe a couple more examples of like what I don't see, right? Something like, I know a lot of you don't trade Asia either, right? And Asia actually sometimes does have some nice moves, to be honest. So but I'm not awake when Asia starts, right? So let's look at this example. Right here we have a sweep, right? A bunch of liquidity. New York came and took part of the the low. So New York went bearish half of the way, and New York went bullish the rest of the way, the rest of the half of the way, right? Then we have this. We have the supply. So this to me tells me nothing. I don't know what in the world is happening here. In fact, I don't even see any liquidity in here. Therefore, when London begins, does that mean I need to be trading London now? No, I actually don't see anything. The only thing I see here is that this low is most likely going to get swept. And if it gets swept, I'm going to look to trade away because there's going to be liquidity sitting right over here. Okay, so in this case, price is going bearish. I have to ask myself, why is price going bearish? Right? Is there any liquidity that we swept? We swept this here. Okay, there's your swing high here. Okay, so that's okay. However, this is following the same example that I showed you all the way down here, where the Asia swept the liquidity. So maybe, just maybe, right, we are nearing a demand zone, so we need to be aware of that right here. Okay, and maybe, like I said, I normally like when London or New York sweep the previous high or the low with all the liquidity given and then trading away. In this case, London opened and it just started going bearish. So this doesn't get me wild up. I can't force myself to trade. So I don't see anything, right? Until I see this right there. So that was a perfect indication. This is our candle per candle trading. I would have seen that to go into the demand. Let's see if it goes. Yes, it did. Okay, so that's fine. Yeah, so this would have been good right here. Right? So this would be fine. Now again, we saw the origin right here where it swept the liquidity, and we're just utilizing the momentum from this swing high, utilizing the momentum running bearish, right? We spot the liquidity internally in these moves, right, to continue, right? And this is where I want to hit the target right there. That's a safe target. So this was pretty good. Let's see what New York does, right? Because in New York right now, I'm not really expecting much. Let's look over here. It's 3 o'clock. If London comes above here, I would like to take another entry, but nothing seems to happen. Okay, that's fine. Right, so notice when I entered there, I TP'd here. Notice how price ran up against us into supply. That would hit me out, or at least a break even, right? But why would I want to hold the trade past this demand zone, right, when the demand isn't even, it's not proven yet that price can break, right? We want it to break, right? Let's see. So, okay, I know I have this line already set here, but, in this case, this is sweep of liquidity for me. Price runs up. All right, this is a good sign. That's 5.15. Okay, let's wait for 6. This was actually NFP news, so yes, this would have been a sell. Actually, remember when I said, guys, up here, I would like to sell, right? I said that there was a high here, these highs. I would like to sell, so look what price did. Boom. And had I sold there, right there, I would have gone into the demand zone. So again, another right in here into this demand zone, into this order block right here, right? That would have been a TP. I would have been done there, right? So this would have been a done. Let's look for the next one, 6:30. So 6:30 is opening. Okay, so this is very interesting. This kind of contradicts sort of the direction, but I'll tell you this. We swept the major low right here. We have the external swept in here. That means I want price to go up because the external has swept. So I'm looking for buys here. In fact, on New York, since this is 6:30 and did sweep this candle per candle, this is candle per candle now, right in here. Right in here, I would have looked to buy into this supply, first supply here, and then the next one would be above. Let's see what happens. Okay, I would have been dead. Okay, this one, that's no problem. I would have been dead there. I do see this, though. This is the other low. This is the visible low. So this would have been second entry here. Let's go and target this high. Can we get it? Oh, okay, so that would have been it. Notice, look at this. Look at what's funny about this. Except all this liquidity would have entered here, risk right at this low, targeting the supply, right? So this would have been good, right there, boom. That's it. That's all you need, right? Now, again, I'm following my rules, okay? I'm following my rules. That means I'm sweeping liquidity, and then I'm just waiting for price to set up inside to take price bullish, right? I'm not trying to trade what I don't see. Let's continue here, maybe into the next session, maybe. 15, okay, right here, for example. Let's see if we can find anything in here. We see the high there, right? So there's a bunch of liquidity there. Asia high wasn't swept, so why bother selling from here? It makes no sense. I can't do that. London literally is setting me up. It's trying to set me up, right? It's creating more liquidity here. There's nothing for me to trade on London. Price swept now. Okay, wow, would you look at that, right? Unexpected. Price swept here. I was going to start looking for confirmation here to rise up, to go bullish. But news came in here, which is 5:30. It must have been NFP news. Yep, and then price ran bearish, right? Boom. So there you go, right? Something I didn't foresee. I was looking for price to go bullish, but it went bearish. All right, guys, so I hope this video helps, guys. If you like this video, go ahead and throw a huge thumbs up and comment on this video. I really want to hear what you guys think and what you guys, what you guys have for me, in terms of comments and stuff like this. Until then, guys, I will see you in another video.